This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. Jordan Girth here from the National Weather Service Office of Observations. Thank you for joining us for the Satellite Book Club Seminar Series. This is session number 130. The title of today's presentation is Deployment of New Satellite Products in AWIPS via the TOWR-S RPM version 23, which is coming out. Our presenters today, John Evans and Lee Byerle from our TOWR-S team. I will be facilitating our discussion following their presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to briefly mention that the new Mesoscale Mission Manager, or M tool, will be released next Wednesday, February 15th. Please contact Kashad Bowman from our TOWR-S team if you have any questions regarding the new tool. Just a few reminders before we get started. As you just heard, the session is being recorded. We will have an opportunity for Q&A after the presentation. If you're from our forecast offices and regional headquarters, of course, today's presentation is specifically tailored for you, so we're looking forward to your questions. And if you have not signed in with your full name, perhaps you're using an office account, if you're asking a question, please note name or follow-up information, follow-up contact information, so we can get back in touch with you if necessary. Also, if you're looking for TOWR-S communication, please check your spam folders. We're aware that NOAA's email system sometimes classifies those TOWR-S emails as spam. We don't want anybody to miss the latest and greatest related to upcoming satellite products. We're always looking for future presenters for our satellite book club. So if you have a recent presentation, perhaps from a regional conference or presented at AMS or NWA, please get in touch with our TOWR-S team. We'd love to have you. And we'd love to have you, even if your presentation is not directly related to satellite, perhaps you used it as part of a case study, still think that fits the spirit of the Satellite Book Club. And if you're looking for training materials, Brian Mott at the Office of the Chief Learning Officer can help with that. So I'd like to thank our TOWR-S team, particularly Kashad Bowman, for all of their support of our Satellite Book Club, the Office of the Chief Learning Officer, as well as the GOES and JPSS program. And of course, thanks to all of you for being with us today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters today from our TOWR-S team, our Total Operational Weather Readiness for Satellites team. John Evans supports the NWS Office of Observations to streamline forecaster access to satellite products. He previously worked with the Joint Polar Satellite System and has led numerous projects in NASA, NOAA, and others, emphasizing open, scalable, and interoperable data systems. And Lee Byerle joined the TOWR-S team in 2015, where he supports the GOES program and NWS Office Observations in the transition of new satellite capabilities into operations. He also supports the AWIPS Program Office in the National Centers AWIPS transition project. So we have a wealth of AWIPS expertise with us today, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. John and Lee, take it away.
Thanks, Jordan. So I'll kick things off here and then hand off to Lee, who will fill in some additional details on this new RPM bundle of AWIPS configurations. This is version 23. Those of you keeping count, it's been just about a year since version 22, so a lot has happened and a fair number of updates and capabilities that we wanted to fill you in on and encourage you to install this RPM in the very near future. We'll get back to that in a variety of ways in the slides to come. So we'll start with a brief description of this TOWR-S RPM on slide, going to slide 2 now. We'll detail some of the new capabilities and new content that is in V23, new capabilities that this will equip AWIPS to have. We'll remind you of some of the content that has been carried over from previous versions. These RPMs are all cumulative, so don't worry if you didn't install the last one or the one before. This one wraps all that up and adds more. And then we won't spend a lot of time going through the installation instructions. There's a link you can find to how to install this and the different steps you have to go through to install the RPM, to configure your LDM site preparation. But we won't go into the gory details there. I'll spare you those, and you can link to those as needed. So slide 3, just a brief overview of what a TOWR-S RPM is. RPM stands, well, it doesn't really matter, but it's Red Hat Package Manager. It's a way of bundling files so that they can easily be unbundled and installed in their correct locations on a Linux machine. So the idea with these RPMs is to make AWIPS a bit more agile, to provide some capabilities on a more informal basis than the baseline AWIPS configurations. Once we've had some experience with the capabilities in an RPM and we feel that they're mature and ready to be put into the AWIPS baseline, then we go through a process that puts them into the AWIPS baseline, usually several months down the road. The content of the RPM come from a variety of sources, discussions, a variety of sources, contributions from the user community, from some of our interactions with the providers of satellite data, and from some discussions that arise from this very seminar series, the Satellite Book Club. This RPM, like all the others, goes through fairly extensive end user testing, and early evaluation. That process in this case began a couple of 3 weeks ago now. And so many thanks to the early testers, friendly testers of RPM v23. You can see the AWIPS forecast offices listed here in each of the 4 CONUS regions. We also get input and updates and content and feedback from a variety of groups around the Weather Service, the OCLO, OPG, and many others. So many thanks to all who've contributed to this new RPM. Slide 4. Well, I should back up, I guess. One of the main drivers for this new RPM is a transition in the delivery of the Geostationary Lightning Mapper, GLM, data products. That is the big carrot and maybe stick, but let's focus on the carrot. So we'll be this slide is just to kind of refresh everyone's memory on what the GLM products are that are currently being delivered over the regional LDM data transfers, but some of those products will transition to be available over the SBN starting in just a few short weeks in early March. So the parameters provided by these GLM products, the flash extent density, basically a count of lightning flashes in each 2 by 2 kilometer cell in each minute, minimum flash area, and the total optical energy, additional parameters available in this product. These are counted up each minute, and then there's also a 5-minute product that's provided over LDM alongside the 1-minute product currently that basically tallies up each 5 minutes. It updates the 5-minute count every minute. But you get sort of maybe a slightly smoothed out view of what's going on. So these products are available from the main satellite menu. I forgot to dwell on slide 2 on this satellite menu. You can see it. I'll go back. You can see it here about halfway down, that new satellite menu provided by the RPM. GOES East, GOES West, GLM, and the Lightning Cast products, which we'll get to in a minute. So people sometimes ask, why isn't there a meso product? Why is it that all of the GLM products are full disk and they are tiled into 62 different tiles, and various nodes along the network can select which tiles are forwarded on, because we don't really need to know what's going on in the southwestern Pacific if we're forecasting weather for Bangor, Maine. So you'll find these products under the satellite menu, both the 1 and the 5-minute. But the big transition here in the last bullet on this slide, the 1-minute product will be transitioning onto the satellite broadcast network. And that's the main message we want to convey about this RPM. And to avoid, not mentioned on this slide, but to avoid duplicate data going to sites, it will, within a very short time of when this becomes available on the SBN, it will be taken off of the LDM. So if you want to continue getting the GLM 1-minute data, you really need to install this RPM and be ready for the data to come over SBN. Here's a little more about the GLM. As mentioned here, it's currently flowing to sites via the regional LDM terrestrial path. The 1-minute product will be transitioning to SBN on March 6th of 2023. That's what, 3 weeks from today, something like that. So not a lot of time. In addition to installing the RPM, sites will need to do some what we call site prep, basically adjusting the LDM configurations for which data products a site will receive and be ready to handle. The 5-minute GLM, eventually there will be a transition in the 5-minute GLM product, but that timeline is still to be defined. So for the time being anyway, the 5-minute GLM products will continue to flow over LDM even after this transition on March 6th. Illustrated here are some pictures of the GLM flashes in blue against the backdrop of band 13 of the GOES ABI imagery. Lee, do you want to provide some additional details on GLM?
Thanks, John. That covers it there for the GLM gridded products. One thing about the GLM, we can pull up all of those 3 different fields from the gridded products under the full disk sectors as well. And then the 5-minute accumulations are pick up from the main satellite menu, as John showed on the previous slide. Because the tiled GLM is going to have WMO headers that are so similar to the imagery, being tiled imagery, sort of similar in the way that imagery is tiled and the headers are set up. This kind of drives some of that extra configuration that we're going to work closely and assist with as we can with the ITOs on those changes there. But that's all I had, John, on this one.
Okay, you want to go to the next slide? There we go.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll take it from here on the Lightning Cast. So it's been in forums like here in the Satellite Book Club where we've been able to discuss the Lightning Cast probability contours and do some evaluations. And I think upwards of, I want to say 60 sites had evaluated the Lightning Cast products through some extra instructions and configurations over the past 6 to 9 months. So in this update, we get the contoured Lightning Cast probabilities included in the configuration. So you'll see that there in the instructions, and if you have it already, a lot of it will look familiar. And the way the configurations are set up here in the RPM, it's to not interrupt what you might have done already. There are a lot of great feedback on the operational, improvements and assistance with support that this product shows, and so we're excited to just keep it flowing as we have been out through the LDM. There's a lot of good presentations on this linked here as well. That will be on the slideshow that we share with you. You can get the links. And right under the satellite menu, about halfway down, is where you'll see the Lightning Cast products. You can get them from GOES East or West. And you can see here in the top left of this loop with the infrared imagery and with the GLM FED, the menu items are shown. Where you see it says PLAX, those are the parallax corrected displays. So those will have some geolocation corrections, like where it says CONUS PLAX. And if we go on to the next slide, there's just an example of some configuration updates that are recommended or that were pointed out. Daniel Harrigan in Miami made up a site level perspective when their office was evaluating Lightning Cast. And one of the things he noticed was the contours that we have packaged up in this version. It can be thick, so if you want to make them thinner, there's a little procedure here on how to make that change to make the contours a little bit thinner. But so these will flow out. These are available now along with the TOWR-S RPM. And we're standing by to help you out on making sure this gets flowing. And I think we can go on to the next slide, John. Okay, yeah, so another new addition here is a derived parameter recipe for a new RGB. This is a day fire RGB. It was added in this version to pretty lengthy list there of RGBs under the simple section. It's about the 5th or 6th one down. There was a workshop back in the fall in which an international workshop where the RGBs were discussed among different representatives from the WMO and from different countries. And this particular RGB is very similar to what we've called the Dayland Cloud Fires RGB. It just has a different component in the red. It uses the 3.9 as opposed to the 2.25. So the particular loop here doesn't have a whole lot of excitement going on with fires, maybe some plumes there inland along the coast of California, but on that particular day. But overall, what we have for this update is the same Dayland Cloud Fires RGB that's been packaged up and in the baseline for several years is now listed under old RGBs. So it's still available. And then the new one here with that red component at the 3.9, that's now called the Dayfire RGB. And there's some links there with more information.
All right. So slide 9. I mean, Lee and I have both worked on configurations for some of these products, but I know this was a result or the outcome of a fairly lengthy process of evaluation of this product that finally resulted in operational availability of this GOES fractional snow cover product. Last, I guess, December was when it was blessed as a fully, ready for operations. And so that will be going on to the SBN in the March timeframe. We're still pinning down exactly when in March, but March seems like the time for that all to come together. It will appear under the GOES derived product menus alongside all the other GOES derived products off of the satellite menu. So snow cover from basically the fraction of each pixel that is estimated to be covered by snow. And the color table we've chosen here is white for very light snow and increasingly intense blue for pixels that are approaching 100% snow coverage. Another cryosphere-related product that recently reached a sort of operational maturity is the so-called ice concentration product from the GOES ABI sensors. This too, we're expecting to put on the SBN in March. This one is every 3 hours. The previous one was, I guess, we'll put it on SBN every 30 minutes. So the fields included in this product, ice concentration, again, fraction the amount of ice in each pixel, but also the ice temperature and a binary ice mask. A third cryosphere related product that is also going on SBN in March, also every 3 hours, full disk product, is the ice age and thickness product. And this estimates the thickness. I think we're seeing here in the color table at the top of the image. Oh, no, maybe not. The ice thickness is between 0 and 3 meters. That's the whole range. So I guess what we're looking at is the ice age categories. These are numeric categories corresponding to various qualitative ice age descriptions. First year ice, second year ice, older ice, that kind of thing. And last but not least for this list, the VIIRS flood maps. These are, it's still a little bit up in the air exactly how we'll be disseminating these. They're not going on SBN anytime real soon, but the configurations will be available in AWIPS through this RPM v23 for the VIIRS flood maps. These estimate the percentage of each very small VIIRS pixel that is flooded, where there is water, where there normally shouldn't be. And so that will be available also through the menus. And initially, a number of test sites will be seeing the VIIRS flood map data, and then we hope at some point to roll it out to a broader set of sites. So that's a basic summary of what's new in the RPM. Lee, I'll hand it over to you to kind of discuss 23 versus 22, what's being retained, updated, et cetera.
Okay. Thanks, John. Yeah, one quick comment on that ICE product a few slides ago. That's in feet, and we're going to have that. It's a very difficult color bar to read there, but right now the ICE thicknesses, those are listed out in feet.
Oh.
And so we'll make that update for you there. That's included in the configuration. So that's
Okay.
difficult to see. But yeah, go back to that list. This is just a quick list. We're going to provide the slides out to show the configurations that are available in the TOWR-S packages. These things are on their way into the baseline at various stages. In some cases, such as the fog and low stratus, the fourth one down, everything's in the baseline now except one of the ingest rules that didn't quite make it yet, so it's coming. So we're going to work to tamper this list down. Just to point out the first two there with the gridded flash products and the turbulence probability, those require an update for GOES 18. That's packaged in the instructions, but otherwise everything's retained as before. And happy to go through any more of these more in detail during the Q&A. Just one more slide. If we go to the next one, this is some of the other features that are retained and updated. The main thing to point out here is that very first entry, there was a satellite menu revamp that was came about through inputs through many forecasters, SUs at different offices several years back at the start of the pandemic, and that's still included. That basically switches around a lot of the ordering that you see in the GOES satellite menus to do the precedence by sector. So that's still there, an important feature that we're going to get baselined in the future. All the other features there are just listed for continuity, or what this new version does in some cases corrects a couple of issues or mistakes, and happy to go over those again during the Q&A. That's it for this slide. I think we're on our summary slide now, John.
Yeah, I did want to comment on this slide that maybe a personal note. The first bullet with that satellite menu, I've gotten so used to that satellite menu that I forget that that's being provided by the RPMs, not by the baseline. And same with the last point there, I have very frequently used animations that are far beyond 64 frames. I actually didn't even know that was not in the baseline, that that's part of the RPM configuration. So that's been really helpful. All right, and then our last real slide here is just a link, primarily a link to the page on VLab that will get you started on installing the RPM and doing your site prep, your LDM configurations to make sure that you're ready. And again, we would urge you to make these changes, the RPM install and the LDM site prep soon. So that we can have a smooth transition to the GLM product going on SBN on March 6th, which again is not that far out. So we'll be reminding people in various ways to make sure everybody hears about this, but please tell your friends so that everyone is ready for this change. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact either myself or Lee. And we try to keep an eye on the NWS chat, the TOWR-S room on NWS chat for any questions that may come up in real time. Anything else? Right. Lee?
Well, that's it from here. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, John and Lee. We now have time for some Q&A. Before we get into the Q&A, I'd like to remind everyone that the Satellite Book Club continues. Next week, Thursday, at the normal time of 12 noon Eastern, we're going to have Emily Barrett, research scientist from NASA Sport, is going to discuss multispectral imagery research and applications. So please tune in again next week for that presentation. And as you just heard from John, you can always get in touch with our TOWR-S team, either via NWS chat or through email. If you have any questions about the configuration of satellite products like you just heard, or about the Satellite Book Club, the email addresses are there on the slide. Please get in touch with us if you need any assistance. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the questions. So before that, we have some questions for you. There is a short survey about the Satellite Book Club. If you have any feedback on the book club, please leave us some comments there. All right. We have a question coming in first from Curtis Seaman. In the chat, I saw that VIIRS imagery was listed as TBD on your second to last slide. Can you speak more about the status of that?
Yes, we a couple of RPMs ago we installed the capability to handle of the whole set of VIIRS bands, VIIRS imagery bands. There's 5 high-res bands, 16 low-res bands, so the capability is there. But still very much to be determined is how those imagery bands, those imagery products, would be conveyed to AWIPS sites. So AWIPS is ready to receive them, but we still haven't sort of reached any sort of decisions on how they would be sent to AWIPS sites as yet.
All right, thank you. And if there's any other questions or comments from the audience out there, please enter those into the chat, or if you'd like to just unmute and ask your question, please indicate so in the chat so we can pause for that. But I have some questions in the meantime. If a site does not make the version 23 update before GLM is transitioned to the SBN on March 6th, what happens?
So that's an excellent question, and Lee did, I think, a 2+ day test of deliberately misconfiguring an AWIPS system to see what would happen. And Lee, yeah. What were the results?
Sure, no, that's a good question. If you, let's say the site has a TOWR-S RPM 21 or 22, which is the one that's prior to this release, what happens is because of the way the WMO headers are constructed to send out this new SBN-based GLM, the site is going to receive those, LDM is going to look at them and pass them to the GOES R decoder, and the GOES R decoder is going to say, yeah, these records aren't valid. It will throw a warning in the ingest log. Those warnings didn't cause any performance over a 2 or 3 day test, but basically what happens is you get a no valid records warning. You continue to get, say, GLM 5-minute if it's flowing over the LDM. There's also a statistics file that's involved in the SBN flow. So it's really useful to get those configs in place in the LDM prep instructions there to avoid those no valid records entries into the logs.
So the first order impact is you would suddenly stop getting your 1-minute GLM data, because we're going to have to turn it off of LDM very soon after the SBN transition. And maybe you're not interested in getting GLM anymore, but you'll be receiving it, and your imagery configurations will think that the GLM arriving is imagery, and will put a bunch of errors in your log. I think we're estimating quite on the order of 10 to 20,000 error lines in your log file, which those log files are huge, so you might not even notice. And Lee confirmed that it didn't really affect performance of the system at all. So, but the main first order impact would be, you would not be able to get the GLM. So if you need that, you need to be ready for it coming over SBN. The 1-minute GLM, the 5-minute GLM, that's going to continue going over LDM for at least some time to come.
All right, I see a question came in from Michael Strohs. What's the status of the Sierra GeoColor product?
Hey, Michael, this is Lee. That's another great question. So the Sierra GeoColor product, way back on the second or so slide, it was the RGB slide. We had the GeoColor menu item there with version 23, and it was empty. So the GeoColor is available through a local application through the Software Collab portal. As the Charleston office might be familiar with, they were very helpful with us before HCI in testing that out to make sure that that local app would work. And then HCI came along, and then our evaluation went on hold for many months. We do have that local application running again. We've been calling it the app, APP. We've been testing it at the Ops Proving Ground, and we've had it in test for about 3 weeks now at 10 sites around the Weather Service. What we're working on doing with that is making sure we get that out to the original 20 or 24 sites, including Charleston, so that we can make sure the geocolor is in place and working again for you through that local application, which version 23 supports. And then once we get that confirmation in the next few weeks, we'll go out more widely as a local application. So please stay tuned. Within a week or so, we'll reach out to you and your office in Charleston, and we'll get that moving again.
Okay, super. And he says, thanks for the update on that. Then I just have one more question. We'll wait for if there's any other questions from our attendees in the chat as well. But if a site doesn't have the RPM or didn't update to version 21, what should they do?
So this question comes up each time we present, and it's a really good one. This RPM 23 includes what was in 22 and what was in 21 before it. So don't worry about skipping RPMs. They don't add well, anyway, they're not. This one subsumes everything that came before.
All right, thanks. Well, I am not seeing any other questions coming in today. So I think we're just going to wrap it up there. And the email addresses for both John and Lee are on the screen already. So I suppose if you have, oh, we might have one more question here from NWS Medford.
Hey, Jordan, thank you. Lee, one question I had for you guys is there are some new data products flowing in or to be flowing in soon with this. And was there any estimate of how much additional storage burden that was going to place on the, the HDF5, maybe DV2 partition?
Yeah, that's one thing that we've really had to consider with the geocolor, for instance. With that evaluation, we realized there's more data being stored in the database. So we're working to include some purging updates with that. This is for that local application that you might be referring to along with Michael. As far as the GLM going over the SBN and being the full disk GLM, there have been some good numbers on that, on what that adds to the network, and it's not significantly high. I don't have it in front of me now, but one of the things that reminds me of is when the GLM does go out over the SBN as a full disk product, what that does is it provides full disk coverage of these GLM tiles. Not a significant amount of data, but it's covering the full disk, and John alluded to that, about how the tiles can be tapered and tailored. And so some of the instruction templates that we have there with the GLM include the options to tailor up those tiles to your region or to your area. But we can get you more information on the numbers for that GLM out over the SBN.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. It was just a comment here from operations. Some folks were looking at having more real-time history available for the local satellite products. We've had to trim that back in the past. Pretty much we don't store more than a day of data visible. And so configurations to minimize what we see from GOES East and maximize what we'd like to see most of, and guidance on that is just food for thought for future call or future advertisement.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. You guys are doing a great job. We appreciate all you do. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike. Will do.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the questions for today. I think we can have a little bit of an early dismissal here. Once again, we'll continue the Satellite Book Club next week with a presentation on multispectral imagery research and applications. So please join us at our normal time of 12 noon Eastern. And the email addresses for our TOWR-S team are there on the screen. John Evans, Lee Byerle. If you have questions about the Satellite Book Club, Kushad Bowman, please get in touch with them. They are available to help you and those in your office that are responsible for installing the RPMs and maintaining AWIPS. Just get in touch with us on our TOWR-S team if you have any questions. So we'll leave it there for today. Thanks everybody for attending, and hope your winter is going well. Take care, everybody.